Welcome to the team. Welcome to Cannabis for Veterans for Cannabis. I always get that mixed. Uh, um, Again, my name is Carlos Munoz. I'm your co-host. We got Jared Campbell over here, and today we actually going to talk about. I know we've been talking about medical, but I think before we bring, I think Jared, I think your wife idea is actually perfect. Please talk about it. What is the idea?
Well, the idea was to have our spouses come on, and I think that would be a good idea because they see the good that cannabis has done in our lives. So by bringing them on and letting them tell their story, their experiences, I think would be good for the audience, and it may be good support for other spouses out there as
Hmm.
well that are in the corner of their veteran. You know, and so that would be good. And I think that type of support would be very knowledgeable, gather experience, and then people can hear, especially from my wife and your wife. I think it's pretty cool. Yeah.
You know, people don't realize, especially those people that have been deployed. Like I was deployed 3 times, and it was back to back to back. It was not, hey, let's have a 5-year break here. Let's have it was nothing like that. It was deployed to the invasion. I was there for almost 16 months because we got extended with first armor. And then we came home for about a little under a year to deploy back, and that was the 0506 deployment. That was the hellish deployment. But my point with saying that is that when individuals, who deploy, your survival mode is your anger. You being, I'm not call it angry, but being like I understand cops. Okay, and I'm gonna use a cop analogy, right?
Mhm.
If he looks like a crook and he dresses like a crook, man, my spider sense is gonna be going up, right? It's like, I'm sorry, it is called um not stereotype, but there's a criminal justice word for this. But it was the same in Iraq, and that makes you angry sometimes, because no matter how many people you want to help, there's always somebody there who wants to kill you, and it might be the single one person that you're helping, right? So in deployments, you learn to be angry. Now think about it, right? Your brain is angry for 12 plus months. You sleep pissed, you wake up pissed. Sorry for my language. You jerk off a real pissed, and it's like, yeah, I'm not being funny. I mean, I'm being funny, but not funny. You just mad all the time, right? And that's your survival instincts. You always got that fire sensors go off and you follow your gut feeling. And then you come home for a year and you're trying to switch it off. But in the other side of the head, okay, my deployment date is coming up again. Most of us want to survive again, right? So we already fire up from the first deployment. And we go into the second deployment where we got the EFPs, man, it's on. It's the Wild West, no rules. Come home again after one of those deployments. And then I do a kind of chill out deployments, but we were moving out of Iraq, and I think that was the danger, leaving Iraq. So it was a little more relaxed, but we're talking about 3 deployments in 9 years, two of them with a year in between. So my point is this, right? My wife, I was the meanest person. And I'm not saying physically because I never hurt my wife, never hit my wife. But I was verbally the meanest person that you can meet. And if anybody else, man, we got it. We can do this. If other than my wife, I was always pissed. I was always head when people walking behind me. So it was the years of that I would call it abuse, for both my wife and my kids. One, because I was always on guard. I never could enjoy myself. Two, being on guard mean I had my barriers up. I got my eyes on you. You look funny to me. I'm gonna keep my eyes on you, and I'm ready to throw down if you want. That attitude made it very hard for me and my kids to have a good time. Then you have the no sleep. Now you're angry and now you're tired. Lord, you know. So just, imagine that, like every day, for 9 years, if not more than that. Uh, and then I left the military and I found cannabis, and it was like a light switch. I'm having a bad day. There's two questions my wife asked me. Did you smoke weed today? And did you take your meds today? And typically, one of the others, not or both, are not answered, right? Sorry, I gotta drink some water. So, and again, I went into a rampage of my experience, and this is coming from, my perspective looking back. But my wife and kids can tell you that, I mean, I was something else, right? Uh, and it's funny because at that time, alcohol was my happy moment. So I was a very happy drunk. So at one point in my life, I'm talking about 9 years in Fort Bragg, I used to go to the shop it, leave the base, open my 40, drink my 40 for about 15 miles, and then there was another gas station where I got another 40, and then I had another 5 miles ride to the house, and I was good for the family. And there was beer in the fridge. So I don't know if you call it being an alcoholic, but that was my life for a long time, right? Is that where I'm at with weed? I don't think so, or I hope not. And I say this because I actually enjoy weed a lot more than I do alcohol. Freaking hangovers suck. Okay. Um, Two is I can go days without smoking weed. Okay. Um, do I have medication that helps me? Yeah, but I can go, weeks. I can stop right now. Um, but in saying that, that's when my anxiety pops up. That's when I get like, anxious, kind of like to my old me when I'm like edgy all the time, right? Um, I don't think that's an addiction. I think that's a, a brain thing, perhaps. Um, many might argue with me. Shit, I might argue with myself. Maybe I'm addicted. But I don't think that's the case. Okay. Anyways, as I was saying, um, cannabis has changed my life. Okay. And in comparison to alcohol, what alcohol made me happy and made me a more sociable person, it was also giving me a lot of side effects. I used to shake a lot when I didn't drink. So I was at work shaking all the time. You know, um, I was way more edgy, especially if I hadn't had a drink on me. Um, oh, I always want to go out. Let me tell you, the difference between weed and alcohol is weed put me in the couch. Alcohol made me want to party. So, it is, and that's coming from somebody who actually enjoys it in a form of a ritual, way better than alcohol. Um, And I think the ritual is the time for me kind of to let go of whatever I'm holding that day, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm happy with my family and everything, but sometimes I do need my time. Like, give me my time. Sometimes I just do not want to talk to nobody, and I want to just smoke a little bit and write some notes. That's how I deal with stuff, right? Um, but I prefer the between the two options, alcohol, weed. I choose weed every time. I feel healthier. Um, I'm calm. I can think sometimes a lot more clear than what I want to. Uh, Sometimes I overthink shit. But it's not like alcohol. With alcohol, ultimately, either when I crash really, really bad or when very, very sad. And then the next 3 days hangovers was the worst days of my life. You know, do you remember those days, man?
Hmm. Yes, absolutely. I mean, you were touching on some good stuff as far as you were talking about anger, right? Because I know for me, I was always angry in Iraq, just like you said. But I noticed when I coming back, the anger just got worse and worse. For me, I had a hard time controlling myself being impulsive. Um, I was very impulsive when I came back, more so than I was before I went. And for
Mm-hmm.
me, things moved so fast for me when I came back from Iraq. I tried to I tried to go back to school because
Mm-hmm.
I went into the guard and tried to go back to school, and I end up going back active duty because I couldn't sit still. Right, I
Mm-hmm.
couldn't finish school then. There was just no way. I was drinking too much. I couldn't concentrate. So I went back active duty, and that's ended up how I'm meeting you and Heather. Right, was
Mm-hmm.
going back to active duty is what got me to Fort Lee. It's how I eventually met you, and eventually met Heather, which became my wife. So Heather, Heather's been with me for a long time. She's
That's
she's seen the person I
yeah.
was before cannabis, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like we were saying, now she knows the person who's on cannabis.
Right.
And my wife's like your wife. If
Mm-hmm.
there's moments I'm just frustrated, she'll do what your wife does. She's like, "Did you smoke today at all?" And I'll just smile and be like, "No, no, no, not yet." you know, she's
Yeah.
like, "Take the time out, go do," and she
Yeah.
calls it, "Go do your medicine," right? And then because that's how I look at it. For me, it is
Mm-hmm.
medicine.
Right. To me too. Yeah.
So yeah, you've touched on a lot of good things. The anchor is a big thing because I think that we all deal with that anchor,
Yeah.
and it's deep. You know what I'm saying? It's very deep, and we're
You
easily
know,
triggered.
people don't understand, especially, I can only speak for early OIF, OEF veterans. And I'm going to tell you why. Because things changed drastically from '03 to 2010. It was night and day. So in '03, I want to say '03 to about '07, it was like a survival mode. Good luck, do what you need to do. And a lot of people went to jail. Do you remember what I'm talking about? A lot of people went overboard. Oh, but my point is, I don't want to be that person. I can be that person, but I do not want to be that person, right? And sometimes when I'm on guard, okay, or when people see me, when I'm on guard, I am that person. You know, and my family can see that and they say, "Hey, are you okay? Like, don't be that person. Calm down." Um, but yeah, but they see that I don't. I don't think your kids are old enough. My kids are old enough to remember Bill Sergeant Pops. You know, that if he wasn't drunk, it was me. Um, I don't know if I ever talked to you about my childhood, but I always wanted to be better than my dad, so I never was abusive. I was a disciplinarian, like I discipline my kids. The one thing that I keep driving into their heads is the one thing that my dad drove into my head. It was as simple, be better than me. And, you know, my dad being a Vietnam veteran in the 80s, and again, I just want to leave it there for sake of the time. But I was determined to be way better than my dad with my kids. And I think I was blessed to have the opportunity and most times be better than him. But anger sometimes took me to places that I didn't want to be. And they saw that. And, experienced that. And that's always been one of my biggest shame of my life. Especially, I had a major breakdown about 2 years ago. Last 3 years, my dad, was sick. My mom, dad was divorced. My dad was on half-death in Puerto Rico. My sister and me, and then my siblings were taking care of my dad. Um, this is a 3 year gap. It became to, I think it was August last year. Man, I was in a bad place, right? So what I do, it was a party. We had a pig roast. And like typical, I take my pills, and instead of smoking a little bit of doobie, man, I go to the bar and I just have three triples of Apple Crown. Now I love Apple Crown, okay, but the point of the story is that I blacked out and I went into the worst place that I couldn't be. And to this day, nobody wants to tell me where I was. Nobody, like 4 hours, and nobody wants to tell me who I was in 4 hours. That's scary as shit. When I came to me, I was under a tree, smoking a cigarette in one hand with a doobie in the other hand, with a bunch of guys telling me it's gonna be all right, just breathe. I'm telling you, I haven't really done it again. But those are the moments that I do not want my kids to see of me. There's probably been one of my biggest shame is of that. And I think the cannabis, versus the alcohol has given me the opportunity to be more me, right? Than the alcohol ever did. The alcohol made me into who I did not want to be, but I did to survive. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Right? And that is a determination that I think a lot of veterans have to the what is the word, differentiate. There's a line, right, in which I think most veterans rather be a gardener, you know, uh, a warrior, a fighter in a garden than a garden at war. You know what I mean? We just want to be left fucking peace. Don't fuck with me. You know, and it took me a long time to understand that, but alcohol seemed always to be the one to take me out of that happy place. Even when I'm depressed as shit, okay, alcohol put me in another different hell, even if it's for 4 hours. You know what? Do you feel me?
Yeah, I feel
Uh,
you because yeah, I feel you because when I used to drink, I always felt like a different person, right?
yeah,
And it was for drinking for me always got me in trouble. I'm like you. When I do cannabis, it puts me on the couch, right? I don't want to do anything else but just relax, stay home, talk to the family, don't do nothing else. But I
my kids
will
get.
I
I'm
will say
sorry, my kids get mad at me because I annoy them. So that's funny. I'm sorry, keep going. You were saying?
Well, for I think for me, like one of my biggest struggles that I have, and I was telling Heather this today. We were coming back from church, and I think we were going to church too. We were still talking about it.
Mhm,
I struggle, right? My struggle is that I feel like I'm my own worst enemy. That
mhm,
my biggest battle is that I battle myself. The
mhm.
old me and the new me is constantly battling. Does that make sense? And
I
cannabis
totally
is that
get it.
it keeps me
Yeah.
right. Does that make sense? Like it's centered. Like cannabis centers me. And when I start going out the center, cannabis
Mhm.
brings me back in the center.
Right.
But I'm also like you. I'm a man of faith, so my
Mhm,
faith as well. But
mhm,
it's I always say my two C's, man.
mhm,
Two C's bring me together. Christ,
mhm,
cannabis, keep me centered. And sometimes I'll
mhm.
throw coffee there, so I'll throw three C's. Christ,
And
coffee, but you know what I mean.
yeah, and I do. I've been very, very, very blessed. And I say this in multiple ways because the last few years, so my dad died last year. But even through that, I decided to go back into the workforce because I couldn't work for about a year and a half. But anyway, I decided to go into the workforce and become the director of a program. It took me a while, but once I found the right team, people from different backgrounds, different races, different genders, different ideology, different politics. But the one thing that have in common is loyalty. And the fact that we're loyal to each other, right? It holds me accountable, right? Because now, weed helped me a lot because I don't know about you, but before I started smoking weed, I was very narrow-minded. It was my way or the highway, you know. Now I see things differently, right? And I'm gonna use like my wife always gonna be my number one, my number two woman because my number one woman is gonna be my daughter. So I'm sorry, baby, if you hear this. My number two woman, 1.2, okay, 1.2 is my wife, close to my daughter. And then I have people in my life, that hold me accountable, including my son, that he's next in line. But then there's people, right? I was blessed to have a person in my workplace where don't believe the same thing that I do believe. Do not, do not do anything that is illegal, straight as an arrow. Um, but respect my point of views. Also help me accountable when I'm disrespecting somebody else's view, right? I think having people like that in my life, having the ability to look outside of my range of fire. You know what I'm talking about, right? My
Yep,
range
yep.
of fire. The ability to look outside of my range of fire. Look at least at 180 sector, helps me understand what's coming in first, because again, I do not have to agree with everybody, but I think honestly, I have to at minimum respect everybody, especially their beliefs, because that's what I fought for. Right? So I don't have to like everybody, but before cannabis, I used to not like anybody. Um, I don't know where I was going with this, but I'm sociable, more sociable than it was. I see different point of views. Like I have a lot of liberal ideas. I know where to be a liberal. Okay. But there's a lot of ideas that I believe in. And honestly, cannabis is one of the big ones. And I do not, I understand the conservative ideology, and what they're committing, historically where they are. But politics, I think we are in a transition from place, right? When we are transitioning from, you know, 2000s, to, 2025 to 2050, AI is coming up, freaking electrical cars, all this crazy stuff is coming up. I think cannabis is one thing that is going to start moving as well. And that is one of my big hopes. But I know I'm going all over. Apologize, but I'm going back, and I want you to give me your thoughts, man. I want people to see, who we are and where we've been. I think Vietnam veterans didn't have the technology that we had to share the experience. They did it differently. You know, my hope is that we can reach out as many people as we can. Tell them, hey, look, it's all right. You know, it happens. You know, not everybody got to stop drinking. Not everybody got to start doing, weed. You know,
Right. Yeah.
but if we can at least agree that it's gonna be all right, you know how many lives we can save.
A lot.
You
A
know,
lot.
so that's ultimately what I want. I think that's what my dad think that's what my uncle would want. For this generation to be better than the next one.
Yeah, it just takes
Um,
open minds. I mean, with
yeah,
cannabis, people need to open up their
yeah,
minds. But
you know,
to kind of to retouch on what you were saying about how it helps us reflect more. For
hmm
me, me going back to school right now, I have almost a 4.0 with 5 kids, right? So when I see the stigmas, when people say, well, cannabis makes you stupid, well, I guess that didn't is not my case because I have nearly a 4.0 with 5 kids homeschooled. So it's, for me, it's improved my writing. It's improved my ability to concentrate on my schoolwork. Um, and I think that's true because I know that I'm one of those guys that I think I'm an undiagnosed ADHD type of guy
hmm
who just never diagnosed. Because when I smoke, my brain just it feels like I always have static in my head, like and as soon as I smoke, that static, what we're probably talking about,
yeah,
static's gone. Yeah.
yeah. I don't know the data, and actually, I would love to do this research, right? I want to know how many veterans are hyperactive.
Mm-hmm. And don't know
Were
it.
they were they hyperactive? I think a lot of them know it because I think that's where a lot of the anxiety are coming from. Uh, um, because I wasn't hyperactive as a kid, I was very calm, but until I deployed, that's when. Anyway, so I just want to know how many veterans who are what we like to call ADHD. You know, because I got the same story that you got. I was the dumbest kid in high school. And I don't know, it was because I was way too fucking hyper all the time, you know, or
Yeah.
or because I just didn't care. I think it was the case. I was a dude, right? But when I joined the army, I did perfectly fine, and I got out. And like you said, I had a 4.0 in my master's program.
Wow.
Come on, bro. I couldn't even speak English once upon a time. You know, being Puerto Rican.
I go to school with people who can't speak English, and it is their language, man. So,
Hold up, give me a sec. Give me a sec.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
You know, um, I don't make fun of it, but a lot of people don't realize. So I am a native born in the United States. I was raised in Puerto Rico, but my first language was always English. Well, a lot of people don't know about me if I have a speech deficiency. So I have a learning disability
Right.
growing up. It took me a while to learn, and I still have a speech impediment. I think that's what they call it. Um,
Yes.
the funniest part out of all of that is when I'm really angry, my native language come out perfectly. And my native language is Nuyorican. I don't know if you know what that means, but it's like Spanish
Mm-mm.
of, a mix of Spanish of New York English and New York Spanish mix. Just watch Carlito's Way, you will understand. All right.
Yeah, I will.
And I found, and people call me say, you sound just like you sound different when you. I'm like, it is what it is, man. Sorry. But you hit a couple of great points, man. Especially about being ADHD, and I always wonder, how many out of 1,000 veterans, how many will say they're hyperactive ever since coming back?
I wonder how many would say that. Yep.
You
I
know,
know I'm. I know I'm.
and how many career soldiers, people that spend more than 3 years have an alcohol problem because they don't know how to settle down or calm down or have a good time without, being on drugs. I see, that always been an issue, especially post-deployment.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting. What are your thoughts, man? I mean, have you seen it in, I'm talking about wives. Um, I love that you touch about your wives. I do have to say about my wife. My wife hates the smell of cannabis, really.
Right.
Like, right? If it wasn't cold, I would be in because she hates the smell of cannabis in the garage. But in the other hand, she always talks to me about who I was versus who I became after smoke cannabis. She always say, I became who I was pre-deployment. Because she said, I left deployment. When I came back, I was a man. I was different.
Hmm.
I agree. I think deployment made me a man. You know, um, boy, there was a lot of baggage that came with it,
Yep.
right?
Mm.
But cannabis makes me who I always was. The jokester, the one that pull pranks, the ones my kids hate because I bullied them. I bet you won't. I bet you won't. That was always who I was, growing up until I deployed. And even though I was deployed, I was always a prankster, but, military pranks just take it to a different level. We cannot do that out here. We go to jail,
That's
you
true.
know. Um, but, like um, if you see yourself pre-deployment, post-deployment, how was it different?
Man, where I think I was different was, you know, really thinking about it. I just feel as if Iraq just almost I feel like it stole something from me, man. In a way, does that make
Mhm.
sense? Like I feel in a way it stole some of my peace. You know, um, but I'm like you. I'm proud of my service.
Mhm.
And I do it all over again. That's the
Yeah,
thing. You and I both, I think, agree there. Do it all over again. Because
yeah,
I think that's who we are. We answer the call, like you said. I think
yeah.
that's just who we are. But I feel like Iraq stole some inner peace sometimes, where it's you know there's moments where when you know what I'm talking about. You try to just close your eyes and then you just hear gunfire, and you just sometimes wish
Yeah,
that you didn't have it. You know what I'm
yeah.
saying, about brother?
You know,
So in a way, I think I'm different. I close my
yeah.
eyes and I'm screaming or gunfire, and it's like,
Yeah.
oh man, no, 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 no. Like
I just want
ceasefire, man.
I just want to add two things that's funny that you say that. I think people that join the army, like 90% of them are on ration. They don't think twice, they just join. And that's how it is to service. Well, most people that don't join, they're a little more rational because they think about it. So they end up going all the routes. Anyways, yeah.
But yeah, I just that's where I feel where it's different for me. Where I just it's like something part of me is. I always tell Heather, I feel like a part of me died in her. Does that make sense? Where
Hmm.
a part of me died over there. Where
Hmm.
there's moments I just wish I didn't have, because I feel like a burden
Yeah.
sometimes. Like I do, and I think a lot of people don't understand. I even think a lot of family. I wish family would listen to this,
Hmm.
but I feel as I'm a burden.
Yeah.
You know that I'm just a burden because I have all these freaking problems.
Yeah.
And I'm like you. Like there's moments where I mean, who hasn't thought about ending it, right?
Yeah.
Where it's like we can openly talk about that because it's
I'm gonna
for
tell
us.
you,
A lot of
you,
people thought about it. I mean, have we not? It's
you
true.
know, I'm gonna tell you about
But
it. It's a daily thought for me.
yeah, no,
Now,
I know what
you
you're saying.
know, I
Yeah,
know it's not gonna win, and there's reasons for that. Okay, and we're
yeah,
not gonna go into that. But yeah, I'm going to admit it. It's a daily struggle.
yeah.
Until I smoke, then I feel a lot better. But
Yeah, that's
yeah,
I'm. But no, you and I. It's there for me too.
yeah,
I feel like my burden on my wife, sometimes on my kids.
mhm,
Where I apologize. I just want to apologize and say I'm sorry. I'm all so effed up. Like I'm
yeah,
sorry. Like I'm sorry that your dad is just effed up, and
yeah,
it's I look at Heather and kids. I love them so much, and I'm sorry. I'm just
yeah,
that I'm like baggage.
yeah,
Makes me thinking about But like I said, I wouldn't change it. I just sometimes
mhm,
I hate myself at times
mhm,
where it's like
yeah,
that's my biggest. I hate myself. Like that, if people
yeah.
understand, it's not I don't have hate for the world. I hate
Yeah.
me. Like
You
I
know,
have that internet. You
yeah.
know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying. I think
No,
you know what I'm talking about.
I know
That
exactly. I know exactly what you're talking about. And it's funny because I think we are. Maybe I am like 2 or 3 steps ahead of you. I'm gonna tell you why. Remember, I was talking about the whole 3 years that I'm going shit with my dad and all of that stuff, right? And even before that, I think it is stages of life, right? I think I was a hoo for a long, long time, and then I was pretending to be a hoo for a long, long time. Then it was I cannot be who, so I'm not worth shit, you know. And then there is where I'm at. It's like, somehow I just don't care no more, man. I'm just gonna do me.
Mhm.
I'm going to respect everyone. You treat me good, I treat you better. That's why I said my circle's real small, and I love it. Simply because I see my worth, and it took me a while to get there, and I felt just like you for a long time. Actually, just say, that I became anxious from taking my own life, right? And I'm not saying that you are that far back. I think you are 2 steps behind me because you are learning. I see your post. You learn your worth and you learn your calling. I want to quote. There's a friend of mine, and I hope. I do not want to always call out people, but I'm probably gonna tag her on this. Um, who said to me the other day, send me a Bible verse. Um, in in simple words, it was like, don't give up. Your story is not ended. Like there's a new
Mhm.
page every day, and there's a new adventure, right? Once we start, it's like a movie. Once we start figuring out who we are and what we're supposed to do in life, what makes you happy, what makes you have a purpose, right? Uh, only then, I think you start seeing things differently, right? Um, I'm not quite there. Like I'm like I said, two steps ahead of you because a lot of times I feel like I'm worth the shit. But then I see, I'm doing what I was meant to do, and it's not. I don't know why it is yet, man. I'm a program director. I'm building a program from COVID to post COVID. A lot of challenges, and I love it. Building a team. So working with people is what has given me passion. So I kind of know what I want to do, right? My point is having a purpose in life. Because a lot of people say, being married and having kids is a purpose. You're 100% sure it's a purpose. Or 90% of the time is a purpose. And you got the other 10% that sometimes almost win just because at that specific time is heavier. You know what I'm talking about?
Mm. Yes,
Uh, uh,
yes, I do.
um, you know, uh, um, it sounds weird coming from a conservative hippie, but science, data, and faith, mm, science, faith, experience, honor, and integrity, right? I said three things that I'm gonna put there, okay? I'm not even gonna put friendly in that equation. I'll tell you why. And I heard this morning. I'm not in high school. I'm not in the business of being friendly. But if you're good to me, I'm better to you. If you're respectful, you're gonna get that treatment. It is all of that. I kind of all go back to school, and that's how I treat people. And the few people in my life are, and I think that's one of the issues. Caring about what other people think. You are not now. We are out of shape, middle-aged men who were in the war. Remember being a private, looking at people like us like that, old timers.
Oh man, I was looking at my old basic train picture. Oh,
You
when I
know,
was at Fort Benning.
so we are those. We are those old timers walking around with our Afghanistan hat. Back there was there's a storm on Vietnam, right? So we those old people now.
Oh yeah.
Just like them, we have to figure out what is our next um act. What's next. What's our next adventure? What's our next purpose? Um, I love what I do. I love the team that I play. But I want to grow. You know, and just like cannabis, there's some stuff coming forward. I don't want to speak about it yet, but um, something very cool happening. And I think Jerry, I told you what it was already. So did I tell you?
No.
Okay, I'll tell you afterwards. The secret. Um, but I think that's gonna be my next venture. A lot of things happening, and I have faith. I think it is the time. I think my story is still being written. And I hope, in a few years, I can be where I want to be. Okay, and I'm gonna tell you where I want to be. Um, I don't know what actor, but there was an actor that literally paid the scholarship of of a young kid to go to college, and that young kid became another major. The guy from um and the Captain America, the black guy.
hmm
I think Denzel, it was Denzel that paid his college tuition.
Wow.
And he was thanking him. I want to be in that position, right? Doing what I love, reaching my best. I want to be in the position where I can see potential of somebody who came from the street just like I did and say, hey, you, come on, let's do this. Boom. That's where I want to be. The experience that I have building programs, especially with nonprofits, with what's happening next, I think something big is going to happen. And I think, and I hope, and I pray that in 10 years I can be in that position. Probably not one, probably not two. You know, if I don't care what color, where you come from, I want to be in the place where if you want to do good with it, I want to help you. Anyways, anyway, see, I talk a lot, man. I apologize. But I tell you what's the plan later on. Once it's closer to the time, I'll send the link. I'll finalize it. It's really cool. Um, but yeah, I'm going back to the wives. We keep switching back and forward, man. Um, like your wife said, bring them into the show. Maybe have a couple of questions for them.
Mm-hmm.
Follow up questions. And then folks. Maybe it can be, I'm not going to say educated because I don't want to call anybody uneducated, but sometimes you do not understand things because you're narrow minded. You understand what I mean, right?
Yes.
And when you say it differently, when it comes, imagine, you being that narrow minded person listening to yourself with your wife next to you, she's going to look at you dumb like, yeah, motherfucker, like, I think that's what's going to happen. They're going to look at us. They're going to say all this crazy stuff. I hope nothing too bad came because I do not remember a lot of the shit. So, but I think that'll be cool, man. See it from a different angles. And I want to stop talking for a minute, but I want to finalize with this. I believe Core Hartley, but your wife is a service member, just like my wife. But I believe as a spouse, when you have a career soldier who saw his share of things he shouldn't have seen, right? Um, come home, I think their struggles are unnoticeable, and I think their struggles are a lot worse than ours because they do not have to deal with our struggles. Now they gotta deal with their struggles, and most of the time put their issues to the side so they can take care of us. Right. So we gotta acknowledge, all the service ladies out there. And if your husband is listening to this, make sure you say thank you, because I'm telling you, man, I would have left myself 3 times.
So,
You know, but what I like, Jared, about this. I think what is become so cool about this, and I hope we're not too repetition is that we have real talks, right?
yeah.
And I think we're opening up, with things. Again, I'm really very, very thankful. I do not remember a lot of things. But, hopefully we can reach somebody and I know a lot of veterans, have similar stories. But to, maybe open up the blinders, and look different angles. Again, cannabis was my my savior in a sense. So I just want to say that about that.
Yeah. No, I understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
100% with the cat. I feel like
Uh,
I was led to it, you know?
Oh yeah.
I don't know. Did I tell you? Well, you know, we can talk about that next time.
Yeah.
We're going almost 50 minutes, so
All right. So let's
so
do it. Let's cut it down. Okay. Let's continue on this because I gotta tell you about the other plans. Maybe we can give some hints and move forward with that. But let's end this with a huge shout out to all the spouses who sucked it up and drove on. Thank you. I don't know what else to say. You know, and cannabis, you're awesome. And most important, don't forget, people, that we have you back. If you listen and you have my number, you can give me a call anytime. My phone is always on. If by any chance I don't answer, just leave me a text message and I'll call you within 20 minutes.
the same here. You guys can reach out to me as well. Facebook, phone. I think my phone number is on our page. I have to go look,
Yeah,
but but
yeah.
same thing. You know, guys, if you need someone to talk to, give me a call. Shoot me a
Oh,
message.
cool,
Yep.
cool. All right, man. So, everybody, thank you. We'll see you either next week or the week after. Um, we'll continue this conversation and, go forward. If you guys want to join, typically it's Sunday. Let's do this. Let's do Sunday next week on time, just in case somebody else want to join. Okay.
Do what time?
The time that we planned off. I kind of
Okay.
like saying like, hey, we're gonna do it just in case somebody join. Hopefully somebody join. Let's share the link.
Heck
Uh,
yeah. Actually, I'll
yeah,
post the link to our
yeah.
page.
Okay.
There you go.
And
Yeah.
then what we'll do is we'll see you guys next week. And Jared is staying by after recording, and let's talk.
All right, brother.
All right.
All right, guys.
See you later, peeps.
Out.
Stay green.